Before we begin, let me whisper something to you. Don't rush past this moment. Don't let this video slip by unnoticed. Stay with me, watch to the end, because there's a blessing waiting for you, a touch from God that could light up your soul in ways you never imagined. Imagine for a moment a quiet place, a sanctuary where your soul can breathe, where the noise of the world fades, and all that's left is you and something greater, something vast, warm, and unshakably real. That, my friends, is what prayer can be. It's not just words whispered into the air or a list of requests scribbled in haste. No, it's a doorway, a bridge, a heartbeat that connects you to the very presence of God, a presence so alive it can lift you above the storms of life, cradle your fears, and fill your spirit with a peace that defies explanation. I want you to feel that today, to know deep in your bones that you're not alone, that there's a power waiting to meet you, a love eager to hold you, if only you'd step into it with your heart. C.S. Lewis once painted prayer as an unbreakable fortress, a place where the enemy of our souls trembles because he knows he can't touch you there. But here's the beautiful, aching truth. So many of us miss it. We start to pray, our lips moving, our intentions good, but our minds drift to the bills piling up, the argument we had last night, the endless to-do list that never seems to shrink. It's like we're standing at the edge of an ocean, toes brushing the waves, but we never dive in. We're distracted, pulled away by the ordinary, and we don't even realize we're settling for something less, something that leaves us unchanged, untouched, still carrying the same heaviness we brought with us. Oh, how I long for you to see there's more, so much more, waiting for you in prayer. Picture this. When God breathed life into us way back in the beginning, He didn't just make us to wander this earth alone. He gave us a spark of His own heart, a piece of His divine authority, like a king handing his child the keys to the kingdom. Genesis whispers it to us, "Let us make man in our image, and let them have dominion." That's you, yes you, created to rise above, to speak to the chaos and watch it bow, to face the darkness and see it scatter. But here's the secret that changes everything. You can't do it from the ground. You've got to climb higher, into the arms of God, into His presence, where the air is clear and the view stretches beyond your wildest dreams. That's what prayer does. It lifts you up, sets your feet on holy ground, and lets you see your life from heaven's eyes. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds beautiful, but how do I get there? My prayers feel small, scattered, like they're barely making a sound. Oh, I've been there too, tossing restless thoughts into the night, wondering if God even hears me. But let me tell you something that stirs my soul every time I remember it. There are two ways to pray, and only one takes you where you're meant to go. There's the kind where you're half in, half out. Your voice says one thing, but your heart's a million miles away. It's like talking to someone while scrolling through your phone. You're there, but you're not really there. Lewis called this praying in the flesh, and it's so easy to slip into. You might feel busy, even faithful, but deep down nothing shifts. The weight stays, the shadows linger. But then, then there's the other way, the way that lights up the dark and sets your spirit free. It's praying in the Spirit, where you let go of everything else and just fall into God's presence. It's raw, it's real, it's you saying, "Here I am, Lord, all of me. Take my mess, my hopes, my everything." When you pray like that, something miraculous happens. Your spirit doesn't just stay here, tangled in the everyday. It's soul. It's like you're kneeling in your living room, but your soul is standing before God's throne, surrounded by His light, His strength, His love. John 3:31 sings it so beautifully. He who comes from above is above all. When you're with Him, you're above it all. The fear, the doubt, the things that try to pull you down. You're not just surviving, you're reigning. I want you to feel that power today, that promise that no matter what you're facing, whether it's a quiet ache or a roaring storm, you can step into a place where it all makes sense, where you're held, where you're heard. Lewis warned us that the enemy hates this. He'll whisper distractions, nudge you towards sleepiness, tug your thoughts to the mundane, but don't let him win. You're stronger than that. You were made for more. When you feel that heaviness creeping in, when the world tries to drown out your voice, stand up, literally or in your heart, and say, "No, I'm here for God. I'm here for His presence." Get out of bed, splash water on your face, walk the room if you have to. Do whatever it takes to shake off the fog and dive into that sacred space. And here's the wonder of it. You don't have to do it alone. The Holy Spirit is right there, breathing with you, praying through you when words fail. Jesus Himself is at the Father's side, lifting your name, your dreams, your tears before the throne. Romans 8:34 tells us He's interceding for you. Can you imagine that? The King of all creation, pleading your case, fighting for you. You're not shouting into a void. You're joining a chorus that echoes through eternity. Your prayers aren't just words. They're a force, a fire, a melody that heaven hears and moves to answer. So, my friend, let's not settle for less. Let's not treat prayer like a chore or a checkbox. Let's see it for what it is. A wild, beautiful adventure. A chance to touch the divine, to partner with God in ways that change everything. If this stirs something in you, if you're hungry for more of this truth, I'd love for you to join us over on the channel. Hit that subscribe button and come along as we explore the wonders of faith together. Because here's what I believe with all my heart. When you pray, when you really pray, you're not just talking to God. You're stepping into His story, His power, His love. And that, dear one, is where miracles begin. Let's pause for a moment and breathe this in. You were made to stand tall, not just to shuffle through life with your head bowed low. There's a fire in you, a spark God planted deep within, and prayer is the wind that fans it into a blaze so bright it can light up the darkest corners of your world. I see you there, maybe feeling small, maybe wondering if your voice even matters in the grand scheme of things. But oh, how I wish you could see what I see, what God sees when you lift your heart to Him. You're not just a whisper in the crowd. You're a child of the King. And when you pray, the universe leans in to listen. Think of prayer as a river, wild, alive, rushing toward something greater than itself. When you step into it fully, it carries you beyond the shallow edges of worry and weariness, straight into the deep, where God's heart beats loud and strong. Lewis once said in Letters to Malcolm that prayer isn't a trick or a formula. It's a connection, a meeting place where heaven kisses earth. And when you're there, really there, everything changes. The problems that loomed like giants shrink into shadows. The fears that clawed at your peace lose their grip. You're not begging for scraps. You're seated at a table overflowing with grace, strength, and hope. But here's where it gets real, where the rubber meets the road. You've got to choose it. You've got to want it more than the comfort of staying small, more than the pull of a wandering mind. I know it's hard. Life is loud, and the enemy loves to crank up the volume. He'll toss distractions your way like pebbles in a stream, hoping you'll stumble and settle for less. Maybe it's your phone buzzing, a memory stinging, or that nagging voice saying, "What's the point?" But don't stop there. Don't let the current sweep you back to shore. Push through, dear one. Push through to the place where your spirit locks eyes with God's, where your words aren't just yours anymore, but His, alive and electric with power. Picture this. You're on your knees, or maybe standing, with arms outstretched, and as you pray, something shifts. It's like the air hums with a holy weight, a stillness that wraps around you like a warm embrace. Ephesians 2:6 paints it so vividly. You're not stuck down here, wrestling with the mud of this world. No, you're seated with Christ in the heavenly places, far above every storm, every enemy, every chain that's ever tried to hold you back. When you pray from that place, your voice isn't timid. It roars. It's not weak. It commands. Mountains tremble. Seas part. The impossible bends to the sound of your faith, because you're not speaking from the dirt. You're speaking from the throne. I've felt it. Those moments when prayer stops being a routine and becomes a lifeline. Maybe you've felt it too. A time when you poured out your soul, tears streaming, and suddenly the weight lifted, like dawn breaking after a long, bruising night. That's what happens when you pray in the Spirit, when you let go of the script and just let God have you. It's messy, it's beautiful, it's you and Him in a dance no one else can choreograph. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't need fancy words or a theology degree. All you need is a heart that says, "I trust you, Lord. I'm here. I'm yours." Let me tell you a secret that lights up my soul. When you pray like that, you're not alone in the room. The Holy Spirit is there, weaving your groans into something holy, something heaven can't ignore. Romans 8:26 promises it. When you don't know what to say, He does. He takes your tangled thoughts, your wordless cries, and turns them into a symphony that reaches the Father's ears. And Jesus, He's right there too, standing before God, holding your name like a treasure, saying, "This one's mine. Hear them, Father." Can you feel the wonder of that? You're not fighting solo. You've got the King of Kings and the Spirit of life backing you up, turning your whispers into thunder. So why settle for less? Why let prayer be a sleepy sideline when it can be the heartbeat of your day? I'm begging you, don't let it slip through your fingers. Guard it like a flame in the wind. Wake up each morning and say, "This is my time with you, God. Nothing's taking it away." If you're lying in bed and the drowsiness creeps in, get up. Move, sing, pace the floor, do whatever it takes to stay awake in His presence. Because when you do, you're not just praying. You're stepping into a story bigger than you, a story where God moves, where chains break, where lives, including yours, ignite with purpose. And hey, if this is stirring something in you, if you're feeling that tug to go deeper, I'd love for you to stick around, hit that subscribe button on the channel. It's just a little way to join this journey with us, to keep exploring the wild, beautiful ways God meets us in prayer. Together we can chase after more of Him, more of this life that's so much richer than we ever dream. Because here's the truth I cling to. When you pray with all you've got, you're not just surviving the day, you're shaping it, coloring it with heaven's hues, and trusting God to paint something breathtaking through you. Now, let's step into something softer, something that feels like a sigh after a long climb. The moment you stop fighting and just let God take the reins. Prayer isn't just about asking, it's about opening your hands, unclenching your fists, and whispering, "I trust you." It's a surrender, not of defeat, but of love, like a child curling up in a parent's lap, knowing they're safe no matter what rages outside. I've had days when my heart felt like a battlefield, plans crumbling, fears shouting, questions piling up like storm clouds. But then I'd pray, not with a script, but with a cry, and something would shift. The noise would hush, and a quiet would settle in, deep and steady, like a river finding its rhythm again. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity that true prayer is giving up our will for God's, letting go of the map we've scribbled for ourselves and trusting the one who drew the stars. And oh, how that changes everything. You see, we often come to prayer clutching our wants. Fix this, heal that, make it all okay by tomorrow. But what if the real magic happens when we lay those down? What if the moment we say, "Your will, not mine," is when the sky cracks open and peace pours out like rain? It's not easy. I won't pretend it is. Surrender feels like leaping off a cliff, hoping the wind will catch you. But here's the beauty. It always does. God's arms are wider than your fears, stronger than your doubts, and they're waiting to hold you when you fall into Him. Imagine prayer as a song, not one you've rehearsed, but one that spills out raw and unpolished, a melody of trust rising from your soul. When you sing it, you're not just talking to God, you're resting in Him. John 15:7 echoes this promise. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. That's not a blank check for your wish list. It's an invitation to sink so deep into God's heart that what you want becomes what He wants. And when that happens, your prayers don't just bounce off the ceiling. They soar, weaving into His perfect plan, threading hope into places you never thought could bloom again. I've seen it, felt it. The way prayer turns chaos into calm. There was a season when everything I'd built seemed to slip through my fingers. A job lost, a dream deferred, a future I couldn't see. I'd kneel, my words a jumble, my chest tight with what-ifs. But as I let go, as I stopped trying to fix it all and just sat with God, a peace came. A peace so real it felt like a hand on my shoulder, a voice saying, "I've got this, rest." Philippians 4:6-7 promises it. Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer, present your requests to God, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts. That's not a fairy tale. It's a lifeline, a gift that wraps around you when you dare to trust. And here's where it gets breathtaking. That peace doesn't just sit there. It moves. It seeps into the cracks of your life, the arguments, the sleepless nights, the moments you feel like you're drowning, and it starts to mend them. Prayer doesn't always change the storm, but it changes you. It lifts your eyes from the waves to the one walking on them, reminding you He's bigger, closer, stronger than anything you face. You start to see your struggles not as walls, but as windows, openings where God's light can shine through, where His story can unfold in ways you'd never scripted. So, my friend, don't hold back. Don't let prayer be a duty you check off or a plea you mutter half-hearted. Make it your refuge, your song, your place to run when the world spins too fast. If you're hurting, pour it out. If you're lost, let Him find you. If you're tired, lean into His strength. You don't have to have it all together. God doesn't need your polish. He wants your heart. And when you give it to Him, when you trust Him with the messy, beautiful whole of who you are, He trades your ashes for beauty, your heaviness for a garment of praise. Just like Isaiah 61 promises. This is what I long for you to know. Prayer isn't a burden. It's a privilege, a doorway to a peace that holds you steady when everything else shakes. If that stirs you, If you're craving more of this closeness with God, come along with us. Hit that subscribe button on the channel. It's just a simple step to join a community chasing after His heart, digging into truths that light up the soul. Because here's what I believe. When you pray with trust, when you surrender to His will, you're not just enduring life, you're dancing through it, carried by a love that never lets go, a peace that never fades, a God who's writing something glorious with every step you take. Now, let's lift our eyes a little higher, to a place where your words don't just echo in the quiet, they resound through eternity. Prayer isn't a whisper lost in the wind. It's a voice, a force, a spark that ignites the power of heaven and sends it crashing into the here and now. I want you to feel that today. The weight of it, the wonder of it. You, yes you, have been handed a gift so wild it can shift the ground beneath your feet. So bold it can call down miracles from the sky. When you pray, you're not just talking. You're stepping into the authority God gave you, partnering with Him to paint the world with His love, His justice, His hope. Think of it like this. You're a co-creator in God's grand story. Back in Genesis, when He said, "Let them have dominion," He wasn't joking. He handed you a piece of His heart, a sliver of His power, and said, "Go, speak, shape this world with me." But here's the catch. It doesn't work from the sidelines. You've got to rise, to step into His presence, to pray from the heights where He reigns. Ephesians 1:21 tells us Christ sits far above all rule and authority, power and dominion. And when you pray in His name, you're right there with Him, your voice carrying the weight of heaven itself. It's like you're holding a megaphone tuned to the throne, and when you speak, the shadows tremble, the chains rattle, the impossible starts to bow. I've seen it. Oh, how I've seen it. The way prayer moves things no human hand could touch. A friend once told me about a night she prayed for her son, lost in a spiral of despair. She didn't have answers, didn't have the strength to fix it, but she had faith. She knelt, tears soaking the floor, and cried out to God, not with fancy words, but with a mother's heart laid bare. Days later He called her, voice trembling, saying something had shifted. He couldn't explain it, but he felt hope again. That's prayer, my friend. It's not magic, it's partnership. It's you and God together, weaving redemption into places the world gave up on. Lewis said in Mere Christianity that prayer is God inviting us into His work, letting us play a part in His divine dance. And when you step into that, you're not just asking, you're declaring. You're saying, "Let your kingdom come," and watching heaven spill over. James 5:16 puts it like a drumbeat in my soul. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. That's you, made righteous by Christ. Your voice a spark that lights up the dark. You pray for healing and bodies mend. You pray for peace and hearts settle. You pray for the lost and doors crack open. It's not because you're perfect. It's because He is, and He's chosen you to carry His light. But here's where it gets electric. You've got to believe it. You've got to pray like you mean it, like you know the one you're talking to holds the stars in His hands. The enemy will try to hush you. He'll whisper doubts, toss distractions, make you feel small. Don't let him. Stand up, shake off the lies, and speak. If you're in a valley, pray from the mountaintop anyway, because that's where you are in spirit, seated with Christ, above it all. Your words aren't weak. They're wired with His power, alive with His Spirit, backed by His promise. John 3:31 rings true. He who comes from above is above all. When you pray from there, everything below has to listen. And the joy, oh, the joy of seeing God move. It's like watching the first colors of dawn streak across a sky you thought would stay dark forever. I remember praying for a friend facing a storm I couldn't fix, a job gone, a family fracturing. I didn't know what to say, so I just sat with God, letting the Holy Spirit guide my heart. Weeks later, she texted me, eyes wide with wonder. A new opportunity had come, unexpected and perfect, and her home was healing. Was it my prayer alone? No, but it was part of the chorus, part of God's symphony playing out through every faithful voice lifted to Him. So don't hold back. Pray big, pray bold, pray with every ounce of trust you've got. You're not just a bystander. You're an ambassador of the King, a conduit for His roar. Your prayers summon heaven's armies, dismantle the enemy's plans, and plant seeds of glory in the dirt of this world. If that fires you up, if you want to see more of God's power unfold, come join us. Hit that subscribe button on the channel. It's just a little way to link arms with a crew hungry for His presence, eager to watch Him work. Because here's what I know. When you pray with faith, when you partner with God, you're not just changing your day, you're shaking the earth, coloring it with His grace, and living a story that echoes forever. Now, let's land in a place so sweet it feels like honey on the tongue. The moment God answers, it's not always loud, not always instant, but oh, when it comes, it's like a sunrise after a night you thought would never end. Prayer isn't a one-way street. It's a conversation, a dance, a thread that ties your heart to His. And when you see His hand move, when you feel His whisper in the wind, it's a joy that bubbles up from deep inside, a laugh that says, I knew you were listening. I want you to taste that today, to hold on to it like a lantern in the dark, because every prayer you breathe out is a seed, and God's tending the soil even when you can't see the sprouts. Think of those times you've prayed, maybe with trembling hands, maybe with a flicker of hope, and then looked back later wide-eyed because something shifted. I've had nights like that, pouring out my soul over a broken dream, only to wake months later to a gift I didn't dare ask for. It wasn't my timing, wasn't my plan, but it was better, brighter than anything I'd scribbled in my head. Lewis wrote in Letters to Malcolm that prayer isn't about bending God to our will. It's about bending ours to His, seeking His heart until His peace floods in. And when it does, when you see His yes or feel His gentle no shaping something new, it's like catching a glimpse of heaven's smile. But here's the thing. God's answers aren't always what we expect. Sometimes they're quiet. A still, small voice in the chaos, like Elijah heard in 1 Kings 19. Sometimes they're a detour, a path you wouldn't have chosen but find lined with grace. I've prayed for doors to open and watched them close, only to turn a corner and find a window I never saw coming. That's the beauty of trusting Him. He's not just answering your words, He's answering your soul, weaving a story richer than you could dream. Romans 8:28 sings it like a lullaby. He works all things together for the good of those who love Him. Every prayer, every tear, every whispered help me, He's gathering it all, turning it into gold. And this is where the fire keeps burning. Don't stop praying. Don't let the silence fool you. Don't let the waiting dim your flame. Ephesians 6:18 calls us to pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers. It's not a task, it's a rhythm, a heartbeat, a life lived with God in every breath. Wake up and pray. Walk through your day and pray. Lie down at night and pray. Make it your song, your shield, your lifeline. Because every time you do, you're stepping into His presence, claiming His promises, trusting His love. You're not nagging him. You're resting in him, letting your faith say, I'll keep knocking because I know you're there. I've seen it transform me, this habit of never letting go. There was a season when worry clawed at me, bills stacking, health faltering, hope thinning. I'd pray in fits and starts, but then I leaned in, really leaned in, and made it my anchor. Morning coffee became a prayer. Traffic jams became a prayer. Quiet nights became a prayer. And slowly, so slowly, I almost missed it. The weight lifted. Answers came, some big, some small, but more than that, I stopped chasing control and started chasing him. And that's where the joy lives, not just in the getting, but in the giving, the trusting, the knowing he's enough. So, my friend, let's live this way. Prayer woven into our bones, faith lighting up our days. You're not too small, not too broken, not too late. Your voice matters, your heart matters, and God's ear is tilted toward you right now. Hebrews 4:16 invites us, come boldly to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Step up, dear one. Step up with every ache, every dream, every hallelujah, and watch him meet you there. His timing might stretch you, his ways might surprise you, but his love will never fail you. If this sets your soul ablaze, if you're hungry to see more of his faithfulness unfold, come along with us. Hit that subscribe button on the channel. It's just a little spark to join a family chasing after God, marveling at his wonders together. Because here's what I hold tight. When you pray without ceasing, when you trust him through the silence and the song, you're not just waiting for heaven, you're bringing it down. You're painting the world with his colors, scattering his light in the dark, and dancing to a melody that echoes forever. So pray, my friend, pray with all you've got. Rest in his timing and let his love carry you home. The joy's already blooming, and it's yours to claim.